Howdy, folks, and welcome to Moose Podcast 169. I hope you're having a great Monday for a lot of folks, the first Monday after a grand holiday break. So I hope this finds you doing well, and thanks for taking time to listen, or perhaps escaping being back on a Monday after a grand holiday break. Hey, I also want to thank my good friends at Bedford Camera. They've helped me make a number of folks' holidays a little bit happier and grander, and of course mine as well. And I appreciate their sponsoring the Moose Podcast. So remember, when you head to Bedford Camera, either calling them up or their website, bedfords.com, sit there and mention either the Moose code or check out with the Moose code. That's MOOSE. Get that percentage off that sale, and if it's over a $99 purchase, free shipping, and of course, for a lot of states, no sales tax. So hey, head to Bedford's, tell them thanks for all they do to support photography and for sponsoring the Moose Podcast. Well, let's get right into this episode. Story in motion. Now, I got a really cool email, and I have to apologize. I don't really know how to pronounce your first name. It looks like Jeremy, but I don't think it is with the goomlots and everything else in it. But he had a great question. And it's pretty simple. He wants to be a better visual storyteller, period. He didn't say, I want to be a better photographer. He wants to be a better visual storyteller. So hence this episode, Story in Motion. Now, improving our photography is a goal we all have. And that's why the Moose Podcast really exists, to help you improve your photography, and not necessarily doing it so by f-stops and shutter speeds and more gear, even though that's part of it, but really helping you with the best tool possible. And that's the one between your ears and beating in your chest. Those are what drive those tools and that gear and the technique. It's you, the photographer. So trying to help you be the best photographer, it's like anything in photography. You want to go from A to Z, but you go to all these different places first because none of it's a straight line. So story in motion. Now, I talk about being a visual storyteller. I talk about it a lot because it's really one of those defining things that pushes me and my photography. And people ask me, well, how can I adopt that? How can I incorporate that? How can I make that a part of my photographic formula or plan or goal or New Year's resolution to become better? Well, I keep trying to think about ways of explaining this. So I'm going to try a little bit different. And some might actually instantly say, yeah, no, I'm not going there. But I've got something that would make it so unbelievably tempting, you've got to listen. So story in motion. I'm going to talk about video. Now, if you talk to videographers, filmmakers, those that, those big holiday kind of big productions, which I'm not saying we need to go to. If you talk to them, and I have just a couple times with some of the big ones, they make it pretty convincing case that when you work in a moving medium, video, back in the days of film, that two things happen. One, it's a little bit easier to tell a story because you have lots of frames to communicate what's happening versus one. But then in that process and using those lots of frames, you become better at using just that one. Or to boil it down, the more you are a videographer or a filmmaker, the better you are at being a still photographer. And, when I first heard that, I have to admit, for a long time, I sat there and go, wow, yeah, I don't see how that can work, because in film, you can have so many things out of focus, yet the mind wraps its mind around it. You're kind of like, don't have to worry about those things. In film and video, you could use things like music and sound effects. You can't do any of that in a still photograph. In film and movie, you have, things like iPads and iPhones and IMAX and LCD, LED TVs that, make the picture look great without any kind of really major post-processing CGI being left out of this. So how does it work? And, I got this advice long before I got into video. And now that I don't want to say I'm into video, I really enjoy shooting video. I don't go to the 9 yards of sliders and booms and stuff, not like Brent and many others, but I do like enjoying in shooting video, because in shooting video, you have to think about the process of telling the story. I mean, you can't just hit the button and lock the camera down and the tripod and everything stays within the frame and moves and tells your story. You have to move. The camera has to move. Things have to move. You have to change focal length and focus, and you have to look at all those things. Of course, not ignoring light, but I can't teach light in a 15-minute podcast. But these other things, these other elements that go into creating that story in motion, when you start looking at them and thinking about them and then applying them. And here's the thing about video that I really love, that I think can really help your still photography, is you have to sit there and then edit that. So you collect all these materials, right? In other words, you're shooting like crazy. You collect all that. Now you have to organize that, all that moving images, into a coherent story, so the viewer then not only understands the story, but actually feels like they were there. You put them in that story. That whole process, I think in the last 5-7 years has really helped me with my still photography. It's not the only thing, but when it comes to that visual storytelling, that is what photography, as far as I am concerned, is really all about. That's what reaches out and grabs the viewer, pulls them in, hopefully grabs their heartstrings, gets them involved with the subject in the picture. Now, you might be saying, okay, time to sit there and hit the stop button and go back to the drudge of Monday, because this podcast isn't going to do anything for me. But I think I have some ways that might really intrigue you in getting involved. Now, there's a lot of stuff that goes with video. I mean, if you are a gearhead, then you really need to be into video, okay? Because all these things that go with it. If you are really wanting to improve your photography, being a visual storyteller, and get that story in motion, you've got to get in a video. How do you do it? Well, let's start with, simplicity. So right now, Nikon has this incredible deal going through with dealers who signed up for it, their filmmaker kit rental program. And Bedford's is one of those stores. They have a whole bunch of kits and they're out all the time, which is so exciting. Now, this kit, which has everything from a Z6 and lens and Ninja 5 and a gimbal and all these in sound, this whole kit, I'm not making this up. You can rent it for 3 days for $99, that whole kit. You can rent it for a whole week for $149. So if nothing else, if you just want to try out the Z6 and lenses for a week, this is a killer deal. But I want you to go past that. Call Bedford's and say, hey, I want that filmmaker kit. And what I want to encourage you to do is, before you make that call, think about the story you want to tell. And here's the thing. You need to keep it really simple. You need to sit there and plan something at your own house. Be it you've got a pet that you want to sit there and tell its story by video. You have a favorite flower that's about to bloom. You want to tell its story. You're about to do a remodel. I mean, the birth of a new child. I mean, there's just a gazillion different things you could do. And write down some basic notes. Don't script it, okay? Because you don't script things in photography, right? You're trying to use this as a way to help yourself become a better visual storyteller, telling that story in motion. And then once you have that basic idea, get that kit, okay? And then shoot the video. Now, a couple of things to think about. So first and foremost, the kit will come and you'll be able to sit there and use the Z6, which is just a great video platform. You're going to be able to use the Ninja 5, which is just a great monitor. You can either A, use it as a monitor, or B, use it as a means of recording the video. And what's the difference? Well, the Z6 is going to record 8-bit, okay? And only if you turn it to 10-bit and you start doing N-Log and recording that to the Ninja, do you get that big 10-bit? And for what we're doing, you don't need that, right? You don't need those big ass files. I mean, 500 gigabytes. That's 2 hours recording time. Okay, in other words, 2 hours of recording time is 500 gigabytes. That's huge. Don't need to do that. But use that monitor. It frees you up from the camera. It gives you a bigger screen. It gets you to think about all the moving parts. The Ninja 5 does a great job of all this. And then sit there and shoot. Shoot 8-bit, record it right to the card slot in the camera, and go. Now, let's think about this for a second. How does this all work? Okay, well, there's lots of ways of doing it. For example, myself, I've got a small rig, and I've got the little half-shell small rig. For very simple reasons. I tend to pick up the whole rig by the monitor, not the camera body. If you get those little hot shoe monitor attachment rigs, I'm afraid that's just putting way too much strain, the way I just yank that thing up sometimes. So I have that little small rig. It only adds 11 ounces. And the small rig, lets the Z6 come pop out. I can sit there and just use it as a Z6. And then I've got the monitor, HDMI cable, boom, away it goes. And the thing is, when you start shooting the video, you're going to start seeing the motion. And it's better, I think, to use the Ninja 5, that bigger screen, than the LCD, because that bigger screen is bigger. It's more life, it's rather than kind of condense it down, it's kind of bigger. And all of a sudden you can start looking through that. And here's the thing. You can go back and look at it after you shoot it when you edit it. And that's the process where you're going to see how when you move, the subject move, you're going to see how the light changed things. You're going to see how the background changed things. You're going to look at this video and you can see all these options go by. And I almost guarantee you can go, oh, I could have improved it by doing this at this moment, or I could have improved it by doing that at that moment. You're going to look at all those different elements, which when you're shooting stills, there's no way to sit there and remember, or even does it recognize, let alone have a visual record of what you could have done if you'd done it this, that, or the other way. And that's what is so, I think, amazing. And I think what those filmmakers are trying to communicate to me so long ago is that, improving your still photography, you've got to be able to, in a heartbeat, put yourself in the right place. So you, the subject, the background, the light, all that comes together in that click to tell that visual story. And that's really the whole point of this. Story in motion. We're shooting stills, but we're not photographing unless you're photographing stamps or coins or some dead rock, right? Which never had life in the first place. Everything's kind of got life to it. How are you going to bring that life to that still photograph? That's the challenge. That's what, if you start finding those answers for yourself, you're going to start finding that you're going to improve your photography through your own methodology, your own tools, and your own abilities. Now, the one thing that's put a stop a lot of people is I have to edit this video. Well, you don't have to edit it to the point where you're going to post it, to a Hollywood premiere. But you'd be surprised that, if you're using Premiere Pro, which is part of the Creative Suite from Adobe, how so much of it is pretty much like Photoshop. But you're going to find that in that process of learning how to edit the video, you will sit there and you look at things over and over again. You'll start teaching yourself, because you're going to see things visually, how you could be a better photographer. And that's the whole goal. And that's what this whole podcast is about, is for you to become a better photographer through your desires, your passions, to see that story and tell it. Telling that story in motion. Well, Winter vacation is kind of over. It's time to start hitting the road. I've got 5 airline tickets in the portfolio, so I know it's cranking up. It's going to be a really busy winter, and I am looking forward to some great adventures. I look forward to sharing with you. And remember that every time you go out shooting, that make every click your story.